Hello and welcome. This is Purpose and Power Podcast with your host, Renelle Brooks, also known to some as Coach Renee. I'm really excited today because we are starting a 3-part mini-series entitled Clarity to Calling, Build What Heaven Put in You. And I wanted to be able to give you something foundational without being so difficult or being so challenging. Just wanted to give you some simple ideas that you can use to move forward with your mission, with something that God has put on the inside of you. So let's get to it. You weren't created to drift. You were created to design and build. This 3-part Purpose and Power podcast series is for purpose-driven leaders, for visionaries, for faith-filled founders who know there's more to their life, their business, their calling. In this series, we walk through the process of discovering your why, identifying the problem you're uniquely designed to solve, and mapping out your vision with strategy and faith. So part 1, uncovering your why. It's really time to go beneath the surface and connect the dots between your passion, your past, and your purpose. And your why has a lot to do about all of those things. Your why isn't just about what you love, it's about what you were called to do. In part 2 of the mini series, you are the solution, so what's the problem? We're going to take a deep dive into how you figure out what the problem is. Your purpose is always tied to a problem. So in this episode, we're going to flip the script and help you really define what you're meant to meet, the audience you're meant to impact, and the legacy that you are meant to leave. Part 3 of the mini-series, Divine Downloads and Strategic Steps. Now that you have some clarity, it's going to be time to build that vision. In the final installment of the mini-series, we're going to talk about how to turn your revelation, that idea that God has given you, into strategy, because God-sized dreams require both faith and also a blueprint. The scripture that comes to mind is, faith without works is dead. A lot of times we have so much revelation, but we do not do anything with that revelation. And it's working on the ideas, the strategies, and the things that God has given us. That is what is going to bring to fruition what He wants in the earth, what ideas you have, what strategies you have, what plan to implement you have. So today we're diving into one of the most powerful elements of success. Not the strategy just yet, not the platform of how you're going to do it, not even the product, but your why. So if you've ever felt stuck or uninspired or unsure about your next step, today's conversation will help you get back to the root of all of that. We're going to dig beyond the noise, beyond the hustle, beyond the expectations to really just find your mission. Your why isn't just about motivation. It's actually your map. So let's find the heartbeat behind your business, behind your ministry, your vision, and build from there. So your why is actually the internal compass that keeps you aligned with everything when everything around you feels like it's shifting. It's the fuel for your endurance, the clarity for your next step, and the anchor when storm hits. So I want to talk to you about a specific season in my life, and I kind of brought it up in previous episodes, but it's when I really started wondering, what on earth am I here for? What exactly am I supposed to be doing? I wanted to know my purpose. You go throughout life and sometimes you have a 9 to 5 and it's like a 9 to 5. So it's work, home, work, home, work, home, work, home, dealing with the kids, getting them situated, or dealing with the family, getting that all taken care of, and then back to work again. And it's basically an unending cycle. But where is the purpose in that? I think about Jeremiah, and he said, I knew you before you were born, and I ordained you to be a prophet to the nations. And so when you think about that, you think about there there is a reason that I am here on earth. There's a reason. God created me for something specific, and it doesn't have to be one thing. It could be this and that. And so sometimes we get stuck in thinking that I could only do this. For example, I can only do ministry. But there's a whole marketplace. The world is a marketplace that God may be saying, okay, I want you to do the marketplace. Then God could be saying, I want you to effect the marketplace, the ministry, the media, the entertainment, all of those major mountains, the education system, the governmental mountain. And so it's not just this particular thing, or it's not just that particular thing, but God has a plan and a purpose for your life that may include many different things. And so in the season in my life, I started to look at that scripture. I started to look at his word and just really figure out, what was I here to do? I knew that I had a strong desire to help people. So I thought the best way that I could do that was by becoming a doctor. I could help people heal from their ailments. I actually wanted to be an OBGYN, the ones that delivers the babies. And at that time I was in school and I was finishing up my prerequisites for school. I was also working in a doctor's office. We had a lot of different patients, and one of the things that turned me off was that I found out in my research that the malpractice insurance to be an OBGYN at that time was $7,000 a month. And I was a struggling student. I was trying to figure out, when I get out of school, how am I going to be able to afford that? Plus student loans and everything else that comes up with it. So I kind of was like, I really want to do this, but I'm not sure if I'm able for financial reasons. So another thing that deterred me was the fact that they changed the insurances. It was right when insurance was going over to the HMO system. And you may not know, but the HMO insurance practically tied doctors' hands as far as how you would be able to treat your patients. One of the things is that generally they would have boards that would review your request to treat your patient a certain way, whether it was in a particular medicine that you wanted to give them or a particular specialist that you knew that was good at what they did, and you wanted to refer your patient to a vetted, board certified physician. They would say, no, go ahead and send them to this doctor. He's also a cardiologist. And it would be people that were not actually physicians on these boards. So they would basically choose who they wanted you to send your patients to, and also choose the medications. They would choose a generic brand versus a actual brand. And sometimes the generic medicines didn't work the same way or as effective as the regular medications. So I decided to move from the medical field and really just try to narrow down and seek out what God really wanted me to do. I began volunteering and helping at nonprofit organizations, and that's where my understanding of how I'm supposed to help people really began to come to fruition. I met a group of homeless people that was near my church, and for 6 years we journeyed together and we learned a lot from one another. I was able to help them. I fed them every single week. We talked, took them to doctor's appointments, and realized that I really wanted to help people in a deep way. And so that began to morph into, how do people go from the state of the population I was serving to really understanding their value and understanding who they are. And what was so important to me is that I was seeking my purpose, but then I also looked at them saying, what is their purpose? That was really my invitation, and everything began to change at that point. I wanted to share that with you. That was my why, because I want to help other people figure out their why. Your why is just really often rooted in three main places. And wounds is one of the places we look at the pain and experiences that we've had and challenges that we had, disappointments, traumas in our lives, and we always look at them as negative areas. But there are lessons that can be learned and also used to help someone else when we've experienced those things. And I personally, I've experienced some things that I told God, I said, God, I would never want anyone to have to go through what I went through. In fact, what I said to God was, God, if I was meant to go through this as safe passage so that no one else would go through it or have to experience it, if I could learn something that I could be like that bridge that would help somebody not have to go into this, let it be. I'm grateful to do that because what I had experienced, I didn't want anyone else to have to go through. So those wounds actually can be a bridge to help somebody else get through traumatizing times. And that pain point may very well be a why for you to help somebody else. Think of the scripture that says, and we know all things work together for the good for those that love him and who have been called according to his purpose. And that's Romans 8:28. But when we think of that scripture, even though we went through terrible times and tough issues and challenging moments, those things, if we're rooted and grounded in God, will be used for our good according to his purpose for our life. Another area is wisdom. So the lessons that you've learned and gained experience in, you may have worked a job, you've gained a specific skill set, or you've had to take classes where you gain knowledge and wisdom where you wouldn't have had it before. Those things are also tied to your why. Just talking about me, God has succinctly placed in jobs and different places where I have gained skill sets and knowledge that I can then pass on to you guys. And it has really, really been a blessing. And I was able, actually, that's another reason why I was able to create Purpose Inc. because I have different skill sets that I acquired, and it gave me the wisdom to be able to share with others. So you look at the wounds, you look at the wisdom, and also the things that you were wired for. Just like God said that he called Jeremiah a prophet to the nations from the beginning of time, there are things that you are naturally drawn to do, and you don't know why. In our last episode, we talked about gifts that God gave Bezalel and Oholiab that enabled them to be skilled craftsmen. They were wired with specific talents that came naturally to them. And if you think about it, there are things that you can do that you just do, and it doesn't mean anything. It's no stress, it's no struggle, it's no strain. And that's because there are things that are wired inside of your DNA by God, and you are naturally able to do those things because God has put them on the inside of you. There's some things that you didn't have to take classes for or spend years and years honing your craft. Just like Bezalel and Oholiab, they didn't have to take classes. They did not have to spend years honing their craft. It was just in them. And we see this, I look at a lot of the different talents and from different people. But what stands out to me is the arts. And, as I'm thinking about this right now, the arts, some are gifted in painting, some can just draw. I am not a draw. I love doing creative things, but I don't have the gift of drawing or the talent of working that particular art, that particular skill. It could be painting, it could be singing, it could be an expression in dance, and it comes and it's something that is natural. So you're like, well, I can just do that. That's not a problem. But that may be your purpose. That may be your why. That may be what God put inside of you that just comes natural for you to be able to do. Your why is rooted somewhere in those those three things, and we're gonna go a little bit deeper. If you have a moment, I want you to grab a journal and write this down, or even just listen intently to reflect on the questions that I'm getting ready to talk to you about. But I am going to give you a free download. It's going to be journal prompts of things that we talked about in this episode for you to be able to visually see and answer these questions, be able to move forward in discovering your why. So this is going to pull some things out of you. Here comes the coach in me. What injustice or issue makes you emotional? Is there something that just makes you emotional and it makes you feel like you want to do something about it? You want to do something about this injustice or this issue that has taken place or this thing that's been done to someone. You pulled on your heartstrings. What frustrates you about the world? What is there that frustrates you about the world? Sometimes frustration can be a divine clue. What injustice, gap, or need just won't let you rest? What moment in your life awakens something deep inside of you? Did something happen and you started feeling a different way than you have ever felt before? So was there something in your life that happened that awakened something deep on the inside of you? This is something that I never really thought about until I really started getting into strategic planning and walking in purpose with people and their different giftings. What do people constantly come to you for? Is there something that you see a pattern with that people come to you for? They just keep saying, hey, can you help me do this? Somebody else comes, hey, I need help. This is something that I think that you would be good at. Can you assist me in this? Pay attention to that because those patterns of people coming to you for the same thing, that means they know that you're skilled at that you're able to do that, and that also may be part of your purpose. Also, along with that, pay attention to the problems that you naturally solve because your purpose lives there. Who are you fighting for through your work? I have a friend that works at a nonprofit that helps refugees, and she is so passionate about helping refugees, helping immigrants, and getting them stable after they've come from many of them war-torn countries, many of them running from natural disasters and things that has happened in their nations. And it is a real passion. So she's really fighting for that population of people. So through your work, is there something that you're fighting for? It could be advocacy for the youth. It could be fighting against illiteracy. It could be wanting to stamp out poverty, ending homelessness. Those are the things that are passionate to me. When you talk about food insecurity, everybody should be able to eat as far as I'm concerned. We have enough riches in this country, in this nation for it. There should not be anyone hungry. So bringing food security, ending homelessness, destroying poverty, those are the things that are deep in my heart that I would like to work for and that I have worked for in various different ways over the years. So is there a specific community? Is it the homeless community? Is it children between the ages of 0 and 5? Is it the emancipated youth? Those that have lived out the time that they can stay in the orphanages and no one has adopted them out and now they're emancipated and have nothing and nowhere to go. It could be a story. Is there a story that has never been told? Do you want to tell somebody's story? I think about human trafficking, survivors of domestic violence, things like that. Is there a story that you know that is important that has to get out? Those are important things and maybe what you are supposed to bring solution to. And look at your life. What story keeps showing up in your life? Is there a pattern in your life, a cycle in your life that you want to heal, that you want to bring solution to for other people? I want to help other people understand their purpose. It's important because what we were created to do is what we should be walking out in the earth. Once we begin to really fulfill our purpose, the enemy will be terrified. There's a scripture in the Bible, I put it in one of my books, and it talks about the craftsmen are here to terrify the enemy. And the Lord showed me that as we walk in purpose, we terrify the enemy because God is multifaceted. He's chosen the foolish things to confound the wise. So as we walk in our purpose, the many ways that He has created us to walk in purpose and to defy the enemy, we walk in purpose and it shows the wisdom of God in multifaceted ways, and that terrifies the enemy. So my purpose in life to help other people pull out their purposes, showing off the wisdom of God and terrifying the enemy. That gets me excited. So that brings me to my next point. When have you felt most alive? I feel most alive when I am helping bring out other people's purpose, because I know it is defying the plan of the enemy, the lies of the enemy, and is bringing forth, allowing you to build what God has put in your life. So the last question for now is, if no one paid you, and I think I said this before in one of my episodes, what will you still find a way to do? If no one paid you, what would you still find a way to do? That is passion, and it can point to your purpose. So your why will sustain you when your motivation runs out. It gives meaning to your pain. It will help you say yes to the right things. When you are walking in purpose, you are laser focused. It will help you say no to every distraction because you are on a mission. And that's why your why is so important. In Psalms 139, this is one of my favorite scriptures. It says, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. That means your why was written into your design, into your DNA, into your makeup before you were even born. And God does not make mistakes. Contrary to the belief of some where people have lied, God makes no mistakes. And that deep pull that you feel is heaven calling you into your purpose. So take the journal and write answers to a few other questions. What breaks your heart? When you see it happening in the earth, what makes your heart break? What lights your fire? What's like, I gotta do this, to do this? What gets you excited and passionate? What fuels that? What story do you want your life to tell? What legacy do you want to leave in this earth? I want to leave a legacy, one that I did everything I was created to do, that I put out every assignment, every project that God created me for. That's just one of the things. I want you to take some time and look for patterns in your life. Look and circle themes that have taken place in your life. That's your why whispering, speaking to you. If this episode spoke to you, send it to someone who's been feeling lost or uninspired. Don't forget to download your free The Power of Your Why journal prompts in the show notes to guide you deeper into reflection, deeper into conversation with God, deeper into understanding your why. Because when you find your why, you're going to unlock that legacy. You're going to unlock that legacy. This, guys, has been an awesome episode. I thought it was going to be shorter than this, but when God comes in, you just let him do what he wants to do. So take a moment, share this entire mini series to add value to someone's project or business. If you have a friend or you know someone that would benefit for this, share it. Share it. You'll be able to find the video to this podcast on YouTube, and I'll put everything below in the descriptions. Audio podcasts can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spotify for Creators, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. I'm Renelle Brooks, and this is Purpose and Power, where your faith meets strategy and turns into impact. Our next episode is going to be exciting as well. Part 2 is You're the Solution, so what's the problem? Tune in next week for that episode, and until next time, you guys have a wonderfully blessed day.